I normally would have a little cup of tea while I make videos, but I've learned that I talk too much. I don't take a moment to drink it and it goes cold. So we're going for a nice cold beverage today. I was not sure if I was gonna make this video. I wanted to, and then I forgot about it, and then as time went on, with me in reviews, I tend to find if I don't make it as soon as I've finished the book, chances are I'm not gonna make it, because the emotions are gone, my memory's not the same, it's probably not gonna be a very coordinated video. But I did just finished editing my wrap up for January yesterday, so that brought a lot of things back, and I've decided, do you know what, we're just gonna wing this review, we're just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna let myself free reign, as I always do when it comes to reviews, and yeah, we'll just see how it goes. It's just you and me in the comfort of my living room chit-chatting about books. Never Lie by Freida McFadden. I had this book for a couple of years, I think, and I hadn't got around to reading it. I've only ever read one other book by Freida McFadden, and that is The Housemaid. I've only read the first one. I do own the second, but I've not read it yet. And I remember enjoying The Housemaid, I'm pretty sure. I don't really remember it that well. I think I rated it 5 stars, but I remember at the time quite enjoying it. I think maybe it was one of those afterwards I possibly was changing my mind about things, or I seen other reviews on it and I realized a few things. I think my main bias at the moment was I'd recently seen a few TikToks, or I think I also watched a YouTube video from somebody who compared a lot of Freida McFadden books and says they're all very similar, or the way the women are written in it are all very similar. Now I could be talking out my arse here because I've read 2 books now, but at that point I'd only read one book by Freida McFadden, and I honestly couldn't even tell you what that video actually talked about that I watched, but I remember it vaguely just talking about how she writes her female characters and they're never very positive. They're very man-dependent, or there was one in particular, I think it was the teacher, I think that's what the video was on that I watched. It was about the teacher and talking about how it wasn't good and it was quite problematic. So I think going into this book, I did have it in my mind a little bit that Freida McFadden books are turning into, or they're in that same playing field as Colleen Hoover books, where the Booktok girlies love it. They eat that shit up. But other people don't like them as much. Now, I'm one of those people that I do feel like people should be allowed to read what they enjoy. If you read a book and you enjoy it, that's good for you. If I read it and I don't like it and I think it's the worst piece of literature ever, that's also good for me. That's my opinion. I think opinions are one of those things that we all have different ones, and that's okay. That is okay. Despite having a few minor reservations about what this book and what other Freida McFadden books could be like, I decided to read Never Lie, and it was the final book that I read in January. It was quite a short one. It was only 296 pages long, so I thought a nice easy read, surely. And I really liked the premise. The summary on the back sold it to me. This sounds like it's going to be really, really interesting. So I'll read the back first to you to give you just a basic understanding of what this book is about. Sometimes the truth kills. Newlyweds Trisha and Ethan are searching for the house of their dreams. They think they've found it when they visit the remote manor that once belonged to Dr. Adrian Hale, a renowned psychiatrist who vanished without a trace years ago. But when a violent winter storm traps them at the estate, the house begins to lose its appeal. Stuck inside and growing restless, Trisha stumbles on a collection of audio transcripts from Dr. Hale's sessions with patients. As Trisha listens to the cassette tapes, she learns about the terrifying chain of events leading up to the doctor's mysterious disappearance. With each tape, another shocking piece of the puzzle falls into place, and a web of lies slowly unravels. But by the time Trisha reaches the final cassette, the one that reveals the entire horrifying story, it will be too late. That sounded incredible. I was very excited to read this. I think there's something kind of eerie about being trapped in a house. It's a closed setting. It's you, it's your man. Could there be someone else in the house with you? We don't know. And having the audio transcripts for the cassette tapes is like a nice added touch. You're sitting listening to that and it's like you can maybe hear things and you think, I can't do anything about this. So I was immediately sold. I thought it was going to be really good. The first quarter of the book, the setup was good. We arrived at the manor house. We established that we're trapped here. The snow is falling thick and fast. They were supposed to be meeting a realtor called Judy, but she doesn't turn up. They do thankfully have power, but there is no cell phone service and there's no landline, so they've got no way of contacting the outside world. Ethan decides they might as well just stay here and wait out the storm in this creepy old house, which he was so annoying because he kept referring to the house in a way where he was like, isn't it perfect? Don't you love it? Isn't it when we move here, when we should buy this place? And the whole time Trisha's like, yeah, great, I can't wait to leave. Trisha from the get-go was very uncomfortable in the house. Ethan was very much at ease. The house is abandoned because obviously Dr. Adrian Hale, who had gone missing a few years prior, and she had no family. Her boyfriend at the time was accused of potentially murdering her, but no charges had ever been brought, and obviously Adrian had never been found. But because she had no family, the house was just empty and it sat abandoned. And one thing I will say, in an event like that where someone's gone missing, presumed murdered, but they had no evidence that anything had happened to her, the police incompetence in this story was on another level. I'm so glad there wasn't even there wasn't a police presence at all. Like there was no policeman characters at all. I'm very glad about that, but my god, they were so incompetent. So Adrian's missing and has been for only a few years. Like I at the time thought that maybe it had been quite a while ago, like a good few, like 10, 20 years ago. But it had only been a couple of years and yet the house is suddenly up for sale. I know maybe things are different in America, but is that not where a house would just fall into disrepair? And surely, if a house is owned by somebody who is missing and maybe they have no other, there's bound to be family somewhere though. Like at what point, who's selling the house? I didn't quite understand that, and that wasn't explained to us. Like it's one of those little details that I just pick up on and it'll just bug me because I was just thinking, who's selling this house and why? And what gives them the right? Because Adrian is missing. I think she's presumed dead. They presume that the boyfriend did it. That's what everybody thinks. But there's been no trace of, or no sign of foul play. There was no blood on the floor or anything like that. So why is the house being sold if it's only been a couple of years? Adrian could walk in the door at any moment and been like, where the fuck is my house? But that was just one of those minor details that I picked up on that bugged me. The house as well hasn't been inhabited in those 2-3 years that she has been missing, and so it is established that there is a thick layer of dust on everything. But that night our characters jump into the master bedroom and go to sleep in the bed, and all I could think about was ew. Like our main character was very uncomfortable being in that house and being in amongst Adrian's things, and at one point she in the morning, I think it is, she tries on her robe because she's cold. The house is absolutely freezing and she wears her slippers and she's a bit like, this is weird. I'm wearing a dead woman's robe and slippers, but they're comfy, but this is weird. But they jumped into her bed, which was probably also covered in a thick layer of dust. Those sheets are probably cold and crusty and damp, and I was just like, ugh. I was disgusted. No mention of the bed being disgusting, but I just know it was disgusting. In the middle of the night, Trisha can't sleep and she gets up, and when she does, she gets the fright of her life because a massive, huge, massive portrait of Adrian Hale that is above the fireplace in the living room is hanging up on the wall. Now this was a spooky moment because the night before, when they were chilling downstairs by the fire to keep warm, her husband, Ethan, removed the portrait and like propped it up against the wall, hiding the painting part because it freaked Trisha out. But now all of a sudden it is back on the wall. She gets the fright of her life. She runs back upstairs. She's terrified. She says to Ethan, the portrait's moved. And Ethan says, yeah, I know, it was me. I immediately knew there that he meant, yeah, I'm the one that took it down, not I'm the one that put it back up. But of course, Trisha doesn't really question it because he says, yeah, me. Wording, very important in these situations. The next morning, she gets back downstairs and the portrait is back where it was, where Ethan had moved it to originally the night before, where it's propped up against the wall, hiding the painting part of it. And Trisha decides, oh, he's took it back down again. But why would you put it back up? Trisha keeps finding mysterious things throughout the house. Like there was a glass of water sitting with condensation on the side of it when they arrived at the house. There was footprints on the dusty floor that she's convinced wasn't theirs. So she convinces herself that there's someone else in the house with them. Ethan, of course, is one of those, babe, there's no one else here. It's all in your head. There's just us. He has a rational explanation for everything because, of course, when it comes to books and movies like this, you need the rational thinker and you need the person who thinks there's a killer in the house. And I think we all know what the likely scenario is in these situations. While snooping around the house, Trisha discovers a secret room which houses hundreds, I assume, of cassette tapes from Adrian Hale's sessions. So she liked to record all her sessions secretly, I might add. She does ask her clients if she can record them, and if they say no, she does it anyway with a hidden recorder. And so Trisha begins listening to these cassette tapes. These chapters are then told to us as audio transcripts, and I quite like them. And my biggest gripe, well, maybe not my biggest, I will get into that. But one of my biggest problems with this book was I wish there was more of that. I know now, I understand why there wasn't, because the story did take a different direction than I thought it was going to. I thought the book was going to be centered a lot more on the tapes and Trisha listening to them, and suddenly it gets to the last tape and it says something spooky like, he's behind you right now, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Like something like that, something spooky, and then it turns out that the killer's been in the house all along. Oh my god, it's a madman. Or it's Dr. Adrian Hale, she's still here. Things like that. I thought it was going to take on a really dark, sinister turn through listening to the tapes, but that wasn't the case. We got a few chapters with audio transcripts of the tapes, and they were fine. They didn't really give us much, I guess. I did work out a couple of things. There was a lot of red herrings thrown in that I picked up on them to begin with. And I was like, that's a coincidence, and that's a coincidence. And then I began to realize, no, these are far too many coincidences. I think they're red herrings. I don't think it's actually, like, you're trying to make me think that this character is also this character, and I don't think that's the case because it's too obvious. So then I figured out a couple of things. So I figured out there was one of the tapes was a girl who, now the way the transcripts work are, it's in initial format. So she doesn't write the patient's full name on the tape, but she'll do their initials. So there was a girl called P. I can't remember anybody's surnames. So, and her story was that she woke up in the middle of the night while away staying in a cabin with her fiance and a few of her friends, that her fiance and her friends had all been stabbed to death, and she was also being impaled. And so she took off running in the middle of the night, claiming there was a killer after her. This killer was never found, and she was traumatized by this. She was dealing with PTSD. I clocked immediately that, okay, well, that girl definitely killed them all. I was like, there's no way. There's no killer. She's the killer. And it was. The second one was, there was a guy. His initial was E. Now, I did immediately think, Ethan. And then there was a few similarities between the two. They both liked wine. They both had similar traits. Adrian described E in a certain way that Trisha also sort of described Ethan in a similar light. Trisha kept making these comments about how rushed her engagement to Ethan was. They got married after 6 months of knowing each other. And she kept making these references like, I know my friends don't really like him, and they think he's a walking red flag. but I love him. So a lot of that, I was like, is Ethan going to be E? But then I thought, no, this is way too obvious. And it was way too obvious. But then I made the connection that I thought Ethan was connected in a different way. There was a woman, I think her name was Gail. So I think it was G. There was a woman who was convinced that everyone in her life was trying to kill her. She was paranoid. She thought the mailman was trying to kill her. And Adrian was explaining to her, you thought this about the mailman. You thought this about the guy who worked at the bank. You thought this about the guy that was checking out your groceries. She also says she thinks her son is trying to kill her. And then I thought, I wonder if Ethan is that son. So that was as far as I got with the patient files. I thought P killed her friends and her fiance. Ethan is the son from Gail's tapes. And the other guy, called E, is somebody else unrelated. Now, he became infatuated, or he was a narcissist, and he became obsessed with Adrian. And he caught a video of her doing something incriminating and blackmailed her with it. So we got a lot of chapters from Adrian's perspective that were in the past, which I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting Adrian chapters. I thought everything we were going to learn about Adrian was going to be through the tapes, and I think I would have preferred that. But it doesn't matter. We got chapters from her perspective in the past. I will say the blackmail storyline was a little bit weak. She was low-key freaking out about the fact that he was threatening her, and he threatened her he wanted prescription painkillers. I can't remember what they were. And she was reluctant to give them to him, but in the end she did. And then he was asking for more. And then, so he kept at her. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you give him once to a blackmailer, you just know they're going to do it again. And you're the woman who has said this man is dangerous and a narcissist. Why are you giving in to him? Also, the incriminating video that he had of her was her slashing someone else's tires. And I just thought, okay, I get it. It would tarnish your image. She is a well-known psychiatrist. She's released a book already and she's about to release another. So she's well-known. She's a well-known woman. She's basically a celebrity. It's how she owns this big, huge house. So I can understand if she didn't want the video to get out there to ruin her reputation. I do understand that. However, I do think it was a bit weak. The blackmail could have been so much more dramatic, because at the end of the day, the story was a guy, she volunteers at a clinic, and in her rush to get there for meetings, the car park is really busy, and when she spots a space, she's about to take it when a guy cuts in front of her and steals it. So she toots at him and he gives her the finger, and in the end she gets out and she stabs his tires. And she's like, it's childish, I know, but why do you carry a knife? No, I think it was established she carries a knife because the clinic is in a bit of a dodgy area and she has it for protection. I just feel like there are worse things you could do. There are worse things I could do than slash a tire or two. I just feel like if it had got out there and it was put on the news that, have you seen the video of Adrian Hale, the renowned psychiatrist, slashing someone's tires? And she could have got on, and she'd have been on a talk show and been like, man cut me off and took my space. Like, what would you do? Like, do I think I was out of order? Yes. But would you also want to do the same? You know, you turn it into a joke. Like, it just felt, when I was reading it, it felt really silly because we're getting so stressed over one slash tire. Why are we allowing ourselves to be blackmailed over this? Adrian started off as a very promising, strong character. Her first chapter, I thought she was brilliant. She was not brilliant, but I quite liked her. She seemed very no-nonsense. She was good at her job. She was good with her patients. I liked her. A good, strong female character. Then, her downfall, I blame on the fact she got into a relationship. She fell in love with a man. There was a guy called Luke who worked at the clinic. He was like a maintenance techie guy. He was good with computers. After the blackmail, she starts to worry about E because he keeps turning up at her house. Or she's worried about him turning up at her house. So she enlists Luke to set up a home security system for her so that she can monitor her front door and she's got cameras. And after him coming around and setting up the software for her, she asked to take him out for dinner. In the end, they embark on a relationship and they fall in love, which was a big shift for Adrian because she
did say that she didn't really usually like fall in love. She didn't really have many relationships. She wasn't like other girls that way. The moment she fell in love with Luke, I felt the shift in her change. She softened, which is not the end of the world. If you're a headstrong, no-nonsense female and you soften around your partner, I don't hate that. I don't think any less of you for it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I felt her entire character shift in a way that was not good. And it also felt very left field. It came out of nowhere. The blackmail escalated because she decided to enlist Luke's help to break into E's house and check his computers and all that and the cloud to make sure he didn't have a backup of the video. She drugged him when he came round for a session. That's what the problem was with E. That's where it all stemmed from. His mother was paying for his sessions, and her mother decided that she didn't think it was making any difference or there was no point to them. And Adrian accepted that, and she tried to cancel his sessions, and he was like, no, but I want to keep seeing you. You're helping me. I want to keep seeing you. So because Adrian was turning him down and refusing him, that's when he started stalking her. He got the video of her slashing the tires. He started blackmailing her, and part of his blackmail was, I want you to see me once a week. So they continued the sessions. So at one of these sessions, she drugs him, steals his phone, deletes the video from his phone, and meanwhile Luke's in his apartment, breaking into his house and checking over his computers because Luke is good with computers, and he checks for any traces of the video. When Luke returns, he's like, it's done. He's done. He's also done. Adrian is like, did you look at it? And he's like, I did. I think she's mortified, and that's the end of that. Do they keep seeing each other at that point, or does he actually? Now I'm trying to remember if Luke actually distances himself from her at that point. I think he does. He's raging with her that he had to break into someone's house over a tire slashing video, that he shuts her out, and she feels devastated because how on earth can we go on without a man? But the blackmail persists because, of course, E has a copy somewhere. They always do. And the video pops up again, and she is stressed out of her mind. And at that point, he comes round and he says to her that what he wants now from Adrian Hale is a night of passion with her. Because of course he does. You're a good looking woman, and I know you want me. So if you want me to keep this video to myself, you will sleep with me. And to make matters worse for Adrian, he now also has a second video of Luke breaking into his house and checking his computers, which now, of course, is way more incriminating because Luke could lose his job. Luke could literally go to prison for breaking and entering, all because of a tire slashing video. At that point, Adrian decides, well, I'm gonna have to kill him. I'm gonna have to kill E. And she enlists the help of P from the tapes. Now that's caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, as I thought, Adrian reveals to P during one of their, it was supposed to be their last session because P was moving to New York, I think, but P was going to be moving. It was their last session. It's also revealed that she gifted Adrian the big massive painting of her that was on the wall above the fireplace. And Adrian turns around to her, very matter of fact, very blunt, very unprofessional. P, I've known all along that you killed your fiancé and your friends. Let's cut the bullshit. Let's cut the drama. I need you to kill a man for me. Just like that. Just like that. And the worst part is P does. Well, no, she doesn't kill him. P goes out of her way to kidnap E, drugs him, brings him back to Adrian, who then has him locked up in her house. I was reading this like, what happened to the Adrian Hale that was very calm, cool and collected that I first met? This felt like an entire character assassination, all because of a slashed tire. In the present day now, Trisha, while snooping around the house, her wedding ring rolls off. So she was fiddling around with it and it rolls under the sofa in Adrian's office where she conducted all of her sessions with her patients. And she can't reach it, so she has to enlist the help of Ethan to move the sofa, and when they do, they find there's a trap door under the sofa. Trisha immediately is alarmed by this, but Ethan, being the dumb man that he is, lifts it up because I wonder what could be in here. And they find the rotting corpse of a human being. And Trisha spews. At that point, we are left to wonder, this was before we actually knew that Adrian had taken E, imprisoned E. So at that point, we are assuming that it is Adrian. She's been found, she's been in her house all along. But in actual fact, it turns out that Adrian put E down there, tied him up, and then covered the entire flooring, or all the gaps in the floor, with tape so that he ran out of oxygen and died. And then she shoved the sofa back over it and carried on as normal, problem solved. Now, a couple of things. The first being, E had a mother. There was no mention of anybody looking for E. And you would have thought, if someone has gone missing and the police took it seriously for even a fraction of a second, they would have went to speak to the psychiatrist that he had appointments with. On top of that, Adrian remarks about the foul odour in that room. So she buys a spray online that's supposed to get rid of the stench of the dead. So she sprays that and everything's back to normal. That's great. But then Adrian disappears. And obviously, there's bound to have been quite a manhunt for her when, renowned psychiatrist Adrian Hale has just suddenly gone missing. I'd like to think that the police would have looked into that in quite a substantial way, but apparently not, because surely even the most minorest of searches of the house, now fair enough, I can understand why they didn't discover the secret room where she kept her cassette tapes that obviously revealed that maybe a little bit about, the tapes revealed nothing. The tapes revealed nothing really to us. Maybe a little bit. They revealed more to Trisha than it did to any of us. We'll get back to that later. But it didn't really reveal anything. So even if they had found it, it wouldn't have mattered. But they didn't find the secret room because it was hid behind a bookcase and you had to pull down a specific book to reveal it. But I'd like to think if they were in her office, they would have smelled the stench of the dead body under the floorboards. Because I know she bought the spray and she sprayed it once, maybe a couple of times. But I'd like to think that spray won't last forever. It's like spraying an air freshener. It's there and it lingers, but give it a couple of weeks and it's not going to be there anymore. Were there no sniffer dogs on the scene? Maybe not. Maybe we don't always bring sniffer dogs in for like a missing person. I just found it a little bit unbelievable the more I read if the police did search for her, which I'd like to think they did. I don't remember there being any mention that the police hadn't really looked into it, especially when Luke, the boyfriend, had been brought in for questioning and it's revealed that his entire life fell apart because everybody assumed that he killed her. Why are we not then looking? Why are we not searching the house top to bottom? Are we not smelling the foul stench of a dead body rotting under the floorboards? I'm sorry, I lost it at that point because I thought, what do you mean? What do you actually mean? It makes no sense. Bad writing. Tisk tisk. I'm disappointed in you, Freida. Then the reveal comes that there has been somebody living in the house with them the couple of nights that they have been here. It turns out to be Luke because he has no life now. His life fell apart when he was accused of killing Adrian, which again makes no sense about why the house was not searched thoroughly. You would have thought at least one police officer would have been like, smells like death in here. Like, don't they say that a rotting corpse smells absolutely rancid? And this man wasn't wrapped up in anything. He was literally just shoved under the floorboards and that was it. Ethan immediately freaks out because, oh my god, we are not safe with Luke in this house. He probably killed his girlfriend. So they tie him up. Ethan then decides to leave to go back to, it's not the car. So their car is abandoned at the end of the driveway because of how thick the snow was. And he had gone back to it at one point to get, I think, his laptop from me, because apparently he had to do work while he was here. That was another thing that didn't make sense. Ethan was meant to be on his laptop doing work while they were in the house and while Trisha was listening to the tapes, and she didn't want him to know that she was listening to these tapes because he'd probably think bad of her for spying on these people and snooping through it. What work could he have been doing? With what internet? There was none. Is he making like PowerPoint presentations or Microsoft Excel? Is Excel the spreadsheet one? I couldn't quite make sense of what he was meant to be doing. Working with no internet. I feel like people need the internet for work. But anywho, that aside, he then decides he's going to walk and try and, because the house is very secluded, he's going to walk until he gets to the road and try and find a vehicle and wave them down and hopefully ring the police or ring somebody to let them know, Judy, hopefully, that we're in this house, we're on our own, and there's a potential killer here with us. Spoiler, there is actually a killer in that house, and it ain't Luke. The reveal then comes when we are listening to P's tapes, where Adrian says to her, I know what you did, Patricia, like names her. And when I read Patricia, I was like, Trisha? It turns out that the girl who Adrian is pretty convinced killed her fiance and her friends in a bitter, jealous rage because it turned out her fiance was cheating on her with one of her friends, is Patricia, who is Trisha. I will admit, this reveal did shock me. It did. It got me. It did get me. I think I had spent quite a lot of the book thinking that Ethan was going to be E, but I still thought it was going to be way too obvious. I did not see P being Trisha. That did. I remember reading this and being like, shocker. And then the reveal comes about how she enlists Patricia to go out of her way to get E. E's name was Edward, and Adrian enlists Patricia, who she knows is a killer and unhinged slightly, to capture Edward, bring her to Adrian for Adrian to deal with. That felt, the tomfoolery of it, I was like, what is going on here? What is actually happening? I can understand her being extremely stressed out about the fact that it all started with a slashed tire and now her boyfriend is in trouble because of the fact that he has this incriminating video. He could lose his job. It would ruin his life. But then his life was ruined anyway because of what Adrian chose to do. Adrian just became very unhinged and very unstable. For someone that in the beginning I found was very calm, cool and collected, it came out of nowhere. It was very out of pocket. I was like, what is going on here? Would you not have rather, like, did she offer him money? I can't actually remember if she offered him money or not. I know he was a nuisance. I know he was annoying and he was asking her to sleep with him because of what he had over her. And that is a horrible thing for a woman to have to go through. And to be honest, I do admit, I don't know what the way forward was with that. I don't think he wanted money. He probably wouldn't have, even if she did sleep with him, it wouldn't have solved anything. It wouldn't have ended it. I just found the way she immediately went to, I'm going to have to kill him. Very quickly, very immediately, I'm going to have to kill him. He's going to have to die. I know men like him. He's going to have to die. Why she needed the help of Patricia, I'm not quite sure. I think it was because she was trying to not incriminate herself as being like seen with him. But that meant Patricia ended up starting to freak out a little, because what if when the police looked into his missing case, they found her to be at the scene where he was last seen. She took him from a casino, which was a fantasy of his. She enacted out a fantasy that he had told to Adrian. And Patricia started to panic, thinking that this could come back to her. So her idea is to then kill Adrian. So she comes to Adrian and she says, my favourite line of the entire book, my mother always says, two can only keep a secret if one of them is dead. And I just, oh my god. It came out of nowhere. Like, Adrian, I think, was a little bit freaked out by what had happened, but she also sort of regained a everything is fine attitude. But Trisha, being the unstable one all of a sudden, was now freaking out, because what if this was connected back to her? What if Adrian throws her under the bus the best course of action here is to kill Adrian. And I think the worst part is she got away with it too. So, grand finale. We are told that Patricia is P, has killed people in the past. She's continued to kill throughout her adolescence, and I think in her teens as well. Did she not kill somebody else? She's been killing. That night, she decides to sit down Ethan, who is for the most part an innocent party in all this, but not quite, because it does turn out that in fact he is the son from Gail's tapes, and that's how Trisha got to know about him, because in passing, in between her appointments and Gail's appointments, they would meet each other at Adrian's house and they would get to chit-chatting, and Gail told her about her son who she was worried was trying to kill her, and in the end he killed her. He accidentally pushed her down the stairs in frustration, so he did kill her. But he fled. He didn't report it for a few days until he went to his mum's house and told the police that she must have fallen down the stairs, and that's how that ends. But Patricia realises what he's done, stalks him, finds him, bumps into him conveniently at a coffee shop, strikes up a conversation, asks him on a date. 6 months later they're married. Now she's pregnant. And I was just like, okay, right. The one thing that bugged me about that the most was the fact that why the hell, as a psychiatrist, and you are speaking with people who are, you've got people like E, who is a narcissist. You've got people like Patricia, who you're pretty convinced has killed the people in her lives that she claimed was killed by a masked intruder. But yet you allow these people to conveniently cross paths in your living room while one of them is coming out of a session and the other one's waiting to go in. Why would you do that? Why would you have these people overlap where they're actually meeting each other? That as I was coming out, she would come in and we used to speak to each other. What? Why would you do that? I feel like you wouldn't. I just feel like you wouldn't. You're asking for trouble. You're asking for Patricia. You're asking for P and E to meet each other and start a relationship, and they're two very toxic people, and he would probably have stalked her and she would probably have killed him. Very unprofessional, very stupid. For somebody that was so in control and calculated to record all her conversations and keep a note of everything and seem very meticulous and well thought out and organised, you have your sessions overlap? No. The worst part of the book for me was when Ethan and Trisha sit down on the sofa and Patricia decides to tell Ethan everything. So she does. She tells him everything about the fiancé and the friends that she killed and why, because her friend and her fiancé cheated, but another girl was caught up, and I think her name was Megan. She just got killed because she was there. She did it quickly, to spare her, but she had to die anyway because she was there in the house. She killed her granny. Obviously, she was accomplice to Edward being killed. She didn't kill him, but she drugged him and brought him to the house. And then she killed Adrian and buried her body in the woods. After all that, they sit in silence, and Ethan goes, well, we're going to have to do something about that problem. Meaning Luke. So they kill Luke. They kill him. And the epilogue picks up where they've had their daughter. They are now happily living in the house, the big house, that from the beginning, Trisha was horrified being there. She didn't want to be in this house. She felt uncomfortable. She felt uneasy. She was like, there's death in this house. I don't want to be here. They buy it and they live in it and they raise their daughter there. Meanwhile, Luke is buried in the garden. Adrian is somewhere in the woods. Edward, I actually don't know. Is Edward still under the floor? Did we move Edward's body? I don't know where Edward is. Probably still under the floorboards. The book ends with Trisha looking at her husband and her daughter, and she smiles and she thinks things are great, things are happy. But if I think for even a fraction of a second that this man is not gonna keep the secret and he's not cut out for this, I guess two can only keep a secret if one of them is dead. I was fuming. And that was the end of the book. I was raging. I was so angry because by that point, I'm not rooting for Trisha. I don't like Trisha. I don't want Trisha to have a happy ending. My thoughts are with an ending like that, where there's a reveal. I don't know if I've ever had a book where the narrator turns out to be the killer or the bad person or the villain. I actually don't think I have, really. I might have. I I might have, and I just can't remember. Depending on the circumstances of said killing, said crimes, will depend to me on how I want your ending to play out. If you've done bad things because you're a bad person, jail. If you ain't in jail by the end of the book, I want you dead. Preferably in jail, but I will also take the death penalty. If you get away with it, and you're now living happily ever after with your husband and your daughter in this massive big mansion, how they can even afford that, I don't know, because both of them don't sound like they have any money. No, I'm not here for that ending. The ending ruined the book for me. The ending completely ruined everything that I'd liked up until this point. Even the reveal of Trisha being the killer. No. I hated the ending. I hated it. I hated it. I wanted Ethan in that final moment to actually turn around and kill her or call the cops. Because what do you mean? What do you actually mean? Some of the key points for this book that really irked me was I read a review when I finished that said they felt that the beginning, the middle and the end felt like it was written by 3 different people. And I completely agree. The beginning chapters, the beginning of the book and the ending of the book just didn't feel like they meshed well together. I want a secret killer reveal to actually feel like there were signs all along. Trisha in the beginning seemed very hesitant to be at the house. She didn't want to be there. And it wasn't even that she was just being vocal about it. It was her inner monologue, which to me, your inner monologue it's you. It's just you in your mind. Like, I know that you can have an unreliable narrator, and this is clearly the direction this book was taken. But I think an unreliable narrator still needs to have a degree of integrity that when you look back, you realise that actually the reason you were saying that wasn't because you were uncomfortable being in this house. You were uncomfortable being in this house because you knew you killed Adrian. I think those kind of reveals would have been better. That would have explained why, from the beginning, Trisha was like, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. Like, I want to get out of this house, I don't want to be here. The entire first half of the book was Adrian like, don't want to be in this house, don't want to be here. Very uncomfortable, very unnerved. Ethan, meanwhile, is cutting about like, dream house. This is my dream house. I love it. Could you imagine this? Like, this is the best thing ever. When we live here, like, talking about it as if they'd already put an offer in and bought it. Meanwhile, Trisha's thinking, yeah, no, I'm not ever living in this house, never. And it's not that she's telling Ethan this, she's telling us. It's her inner monologue. She's talking to herself. She's in her own head, right? That would have been fine if that then, the reveal comes that she killed Adrian. You think, okay, that's why she didn't want to be in this house at all. Because she knows. She knows that maybe Adrian was under the floorboards, or she knows stuff about this house. She doesn't want to be here because it reminds her of what she did to Adrian. That even if she is a psychopath or a sociopath, there's still that element of, I don't want to be here. I don't want to live in this house. But then the reveal comes that actually the reason they're in this house in the beginning is because Trisha was keeping tabs on the place and she knew it was going to be opening up to viewings very soon. So I can't remember how she knew Judy or got to know her, stole keys from Judy, planted them at the house, told Ethan they were going, or somehow pretended to be Judy, speaking to Ethan to tell him about a viewing when there was a snowstorm. They arrived at the house. Judy didn't turn up. They assumed it's because of the snowstorm. She chucks down the keys to make Ethan thinks he's found them so that they can come in and wait for Judy to come. But actually, in actual fact, what it was, she planned this all along so that she could get into the house, spend that uninterrupted time there and search for the body of Edward Jameson because she was convinced that Adrian hid him somewhere in the house and she was worried that it would tie back to her. That then makes no sense of why you were acting the way you were acting in the beginning. No sense at all. None. And like I say, even if we're going for the unreliable narrator route, I still need there to be some sort of, for it to be good writing, for it to be compelling, I want it to at least have some sort of clue or indication from the get-go that actually this is what you wanted, this is what you had planned out, The clues were there all along. It was written between the lines. Not that you were acting like you didn't want to be in this house to us, to Ethan, mostly to us though, because she put on a front to Ethan. So it wasn't like she was acting up in front of him. She was acting up to us, which we are not real. We are an entity. We are not a real person. Like, this is not you documenting what happened. We're in your head. We are in your head as the reader. It made no sense. It made no sense to me. The Trisha from the first few chapters does not tie into the Trisha from the last chapters. It really doesn't. If it had been entirely what she was saying to Ethan, and even slightly what she was saying to us, it just made no sense that she seemed like it was too much. It was way too much overkill of, I don't want to be at this house. I don't want to be here. Oh my God, this is uncomfortable. I can't believe I'm here. Can't believe I'm wearing a dead woman's robes. Can't believe I'm wearing the dead woman's slippers. Oh my God, Adrian probably died. What, you know, things like that. It did not make sense, and I found it to be very disappointing. The entire book, in the end, I did find disappointing because I wanted it to be more suspenseful. I wanted there to be more transcripts from the tapes, and I wanted them to actually play quite an important part into what happened to Adrian. Because the only reason Trisha was listening to the tapes, she listened to Gail's tapes, probably because she knew that was Ethan's mum. She listened to Edward's tapes, especially like the last ones, because she wanted to get an understanding of why Adrian wanted to do what she did. And she listened to a couple of her tapes, but very importantly, she wanted to listen to the final tape, because the final tape was the one where Adrian said to her, I know it was you, Patricia, but I need your help. So she took that tape and destroyed it because it could lead back to her. At this point now, we have 3 bodies. 3 bodies all within the vicinity of this house. Edward is probably still under the floorboards. I assume maybe they buried him in the garden, actually. I'm sure that Ethan wouldn't have wanted to keep the body under there, so I'm assuming they probably buried him. Then there's Luke, who's in the back garden, and then Adrian somewhere in woodland somewhere. Things just didn't make much sense to me at all, because surely the police would look into this. This was somebody who was basically a celebrity. She was well known, and she was missing, and they thought the boyfriend did it. She had home security set up. Now, I'm pretty sure I don't remember any mention of Trisha doing anything to the tapes or doing anything to the security cameras. So surely police would get access to that. Luke would have said to them, I set up a security system for her. Have you looked at that? And they would have looked at it and they'd have been like, oh, look, who's that? Oh, it's actually one of our patients. Oh, she was caught up in a murder a few years ago. That's suspicious. That's weird. It just felt like lazy writing. I mean, we were never really told that the police were incompetent and they didn't really look into the case, but it just felt very lazy. Like, there was no mention of the police, really, and their case at all, or them looking into a missing person. None of that made any sense to me, because why are we not looking into this? Why did they not look into it properly? I'm pretty sure the evidence was there. There was a body under the fucking floorboards in the house of a missing woman. No. That made it feel the book felt very sloppy by that point. I was disheartened. I was disappointed. I couldn't decide what I wanted to rate this book. When I first finished it, it was like 2 in the morning and I gave it 4.5 stars because I thought the reveal of Trisha being Patricia and being involved was quite surprising. I was like, oh, I did not see that coming. However, though, I then just felt like the more I thought about it, and I did talk about it in my little Sunday vlog, which I'll leave linked below, I realised I wasn't happy about a few things, and so I brought my review down to 3.5 stars. In the end, I don't actually know what I settled for. It's definitely better than a 3-star book. I wouldn't give it as little as that. 4 stars is usually my go-to for a book that was practically pretty good. It's just not quite perfect enough to give it 5 stars. So maybe I could give it 4 stars. I was just very, very, very disappointed by the way it was all handled and the way it all came out, because things just didn't make sense. It made no sense. And there was too many plot holes. I suppose we can't just put the majority of this book down to police incompetence, which we know can be a big factor in many, many cases. But in a book, I expect better. I expected better, especially for Dr. Adrian Hale, renowned psychiatrist. I made one note while reading this book that I knew That was a turning point for me, actually, and that was on page 148. And it made me realise that, do you know what? That video I saw about Freida McFadden's female characters and the way she portrays them, low-key misogynistic. The turning point for me in this book that kind of solidified that for me was when our main character Trisha, in reference to Adrian, the missing woman whose boyfriend Luke was accused of killing her. Now she listens to a tape between Luke and Adrian, which is done for fun. He finds the tape recorder and she tells him that she records her sessions. So for a bit of a joke, before they officially become a couple, they sit down and they do a little pretend session. This is what Trisha has to say about that. He liked her. He really liked her. I can hear it in his voice. This was obviously recorded before they were dating and he just had a crush on her. It's so sweet you could almost throw up. It sounds like she let him kiss her, and then some. Luke doesn't sound like a killer. He sounds like a decent guy, if a bit needy. His voice isn't dripping with evil like EJ's. But of course, this was at the beginning of their relationship. A lot can change. Did she do something to him that made him hate her? She must have. How dare you? Trisha, how dare you? That was the moment I was like, Trisha, it was bad enough the way she talked about her husband Ethan, the way she was so besotted by him and obsessed and in love and kept referencing how my friends say he's got red flags, but I don't see them. Red is the colour of love. I knew that she was not wise. But that moment for me, I made a note of it. I made a note on my phone where I wrote, page 148, I have beef. Because how the hell are you going to blame a woman who is missing and her boyfriend has been accused of killing her, potentially, or having something to do with it, and you say it must have been her fault? I know that is probably not supposed to be a reflection on Freida McFadden. It's supposed to be a reflection of Trisha and her views, but I can't help it. I can't help it. I think there is a running theme with Freida's books with how she portrays her female characters. I remember in The Housemaid where the character of Millie was pretty convinced that the woman, I don't know her name, was to blame for acting the way she did, when it turned out she was actually a woman abused. I'm done. I've had enough. This is over an hour long, probably. I can't keep going on. I can't keep doing this. So that is my take on Freida McFadden's Never Lie. Disappointing. This had a really promising premise that just didn't quite live up to expectations. Did not like the way the female characters were written by the end. Thought the reveals were pretty okay. I thought the reveals were actually pretty good. I just felt that they didn't quite tie in perfectly to the rest of the story, in the sense of how the fuck did you get away with it all this time? But police incompetence, I guess, even though there was no real mention of that in the book, I think are we just supposed to assume? Or are we just not, or are we supposed to be incompetent and not use our big brains and thinking, well, surely the police would have discovered the body under the floorboards? But anywho, thank you so much for watching this very, very long. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, well done you. Round of applause. If you like, you can follow my socials, which are linked in the description box down below, and any relevant videos that are related to this, probably where I was reading Never Lie, will also be linked down below as well, that you can check out as well. And as always, I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Now I need to de-stress from getting all that off my chest. Actually, do you know what though? I do feel better. I do feel better for it. I think I did needed to do this review. I'm just not looking forward to editing it. It's gonna take me forever. Bye!